Good week. I get it. I get it. Yeah. I'm ready to go. I get it.
How you doing, everybody? This is Big Stock 1974 with Bet on Drew, doing a tutorial on Dawn play and Dawn strategies at the $10 double up level. Alright, I'm doing this as I play, so hopefully everything works out well. While the blinds are low and the game's pretty much fold, I want to talk about the mathematical side of the strategy that I use. And the biggest thing I want you to take from this is, one, notice that the table starts out with 1,500 chips, giving the 6 max players a total stack of 9,000 chips. Basically what that means to me is, to guarantee myself into the money, I need 30% of the chips, which would be about 3,000. How does that affect the strategy? I use these as critical turning points in the tournament, as you'll see later, to decide when to start pushing and start executing a fold shove type style play. Alright, the beginning of these tournaments, it's real tight, real basic tournament. You're pretty much playing just the top premium hands, and the reason why you're going to play this type of style is because you do not want to get to the point where you have no fold equity when you're in the later stages of the tournament. And it becomes real critical because all these tournaments will become real pushy, real shovey type tournaments. The basic and the first thing that you want to do when you're playing at this level is you want to start out by taking note of the players immediately to your left. As you see here, we got a guy named Terrible Lie, and to your right, a guy named Wave Boy Maui. Alright, and the thing that you want to take note on is their style of play. You want to get to the point to where you can isolate the player at the table that you're going to be able to shove on and increase your fold equity and later in the stages. Basically what you're looking for is a tight passive style play. Alright, as you see here with pocket sixes from under the gun, I'm just limping. I'm not getting into a big pot, keeping it real simple. A lot of times at this level you'll see that people pretty much play their hands the way they are, and small little bets will usually take things down early stages in this. These levels are fairly easy. Nothing fancy usually is required to make it into these tournaments. Just simple ABC poker. A lot of people get wrapped up in attempting to try to bluff and steal things from these opponents, and you end up losing a lot of your fold equity that you need later in the tournament. And as you see, you know, there's 30 chips in the whole pot, and it just doesn't make no sense to be risking 1,500 chips at this level. The other thing that I want you to take note of is 90% of the hands that I play will be from in position, and the important side of this is that you do not want to be out of position and get played back at, because again you're losing chips that are going to become very valuable later. When you do raise at this level, the beginning stages, I always try to use 3x type raises, usually about 3.5 type raises, and the reason why is because the blinds are so small. Your standard 2.5 and 2.2 type raises are not going to help you in any way. You're still going to get half the table to call you. The variance here is the hand selection that you're going to use. In a typical 6-man style MTT, a shorthand MTT, things like ace 10 and ace 9 from the button potentially are raisable hands, to where in Don's early stages we're not so much worried about building a stack as much as we are just trying to double up one time. So the hand selections that we use are going to be a much tighter hand selections versus a standard MTT. And a lot of players that I see at this level definitely come into that with the MTT type style, and they try to stack up and end up getting themselves caught up. Here's another situation where the raises are way too big, way too early, and we end up getting a balloon pot when there's not really any need. And you'll see that when it's all said and done, the player that loses is going to end up losing a lot of fold equity later in this tournament. Again, suited aces look nice, but that's in Don's, that's exactly where they belong, folded. You know, and again, once the blinds get bigger and the tournament changes, and based off of your position in the field, again, then you'll start seeing more aggressive play. Just early in the tournament, there's just no need. Again, same thing. Keep in mind these big balloon pots that we're seeing here started out with 75 chips in the middle. There's no antes just yet, not until the next stage, and there's just no need in these pots. You see the hands are not monster type hands. It was king queen versus ace 10, I believe the last hand was. Again, mediocre marginal hands, and the pots get ballooned up, and now we've got two potential candidates to be sitting on the rail.
You're ready for this? I just signed the whole family up for unlimited mobile minutes.
You're kidding. Where's that money coming from, Steve? Did it even cross your mind to ask your wife before signing this up for something so expensive? You're right. I should marry John Clark.
Again, ABC type style poker. You see how the blinds, the pot's much smaller. It allows me to make much smaller bets. I'm risking a lot less of my stack. We've already isolated it. This player right here, we've already have seen is basically a calling style type player. He's not very aggressive. We continue to value bet and see where it takes us. Keeping the pots small. Again, here, there's not really any need to bet this and potentially give this guy the opportunity to shove on us. We keep the pot small, we keep it controlled. And again, you see how weak the players really are. Again, position is key here. 7-6, especially suited, would be a good limping hand. but we don't want to really put ourselves in an out of position situation. A lot of your weak players limp in with this. They hit that top pair and they forget that their kicker really does matter, and they end up getting tangled up into a pot and lose it on the turn. Now here's a situation playing a top tier hand, even with it being smaller blinds here. Here's where we're trying to get to that 3K mark, and it gives us the biggest, highest percentage chance of reaching that area. About 3.5x. Good bet. It takes it down, and we continue our climb to 3K. Again, take note. Our standard calling station player right here is calling. This guy has yet to play a hand yet. I assume he to be fairly strong from under the gun with this 3 times raise. We'll see how he plays his first hand. Again, calling station player, you get a lot of this at this level. Wasn't as strong as what I had anticipated, but still did the same. Again, potentially a good position to limp. However, we don't want to waste any chips. That is the key when you're playing this. It's not necessarily so much about being tight as much as or being nitty. It's more so of conserving your assets for later in the stages when it becomes an all-in fold style tournament, if you have not reached that 3K range. Pretty standard play so far for this level. And you'll see blind levels are 6-minute levels. As they get bigger, this guy here has only played 2 hands. Nuts flopped. He's got tangled up into 2 balloon pots that shouldn't have really been all that bad. He's lost only 300 chips, but the next level puts him already down to 10 big blinds, and that's where it becomes critical. You know, one more stage up, or again, this guy getting tangled up into pots that he probably isn't as strong as he's acting in. He might be. It was this guy that was not as strong as he should have been. But again, this is what you count on to help you make it to the money, is this terrible play, and that's one less person you have to contend with. Again, there's no sense in making any fancy moves, trying to come over the top and do these fancy bluffs. There's just no need in it. You let it have it, you conserve your chips, and you move on until the blinds get bigger. Again, and here's another situation where you're going to see a player raising into a big short stack, more likely with a marginal hand. Not so much in this situation where the guy only has 124, but you'll see it a lot where a guy will raise 200 chips into a guy with 450 chips, and he gets into a marginal hand and loses 450 chips. Wow. Again, situation here. This is the next area that most people get put out on dawns. above average starting hand, suited, looks great. Again, this pot started out with 150 chips in it. We're going to call 900 chips, not even quite giving us like 1.3 in our pot odds. We're gambling. There's so many hands here that he could be shoving that would cause us to be dominated. Ace queen, ace king, tens, jacks, queens, all of them again just destroying us. The best thing here is to find a better spot. Conserve your chips. It's still early. Let him have it for now. And that's where a lot of these Don players get frustrated, because they don't understand it's about conserving chips versus bullying people. Alright, now that the blinds are starting to get a little bit bigger, we're going to change our betting strategy. Lower it down to about 2.5. Make sure we stay in position. Again, same situation here. We don't want to get wrapped up into these overly aggressive players and end up losing to races. All right, that's the reason for lowering our starting bet. It allows us to get away from hands and get ourselves in trouble. All right, we're still above 10 big blinds. Still got plenty of time. There's no need in being in a big hurry. About the next level where the blinds reach 150, if we're still not in the top 3 by that point, it's where it becomes a much more aggressive game. At that point we'll be under the 10 big blinds, and there won't be any more raises. It'll just be a shoving match at that point. We keep our bets small, try to consume a little bit of stacks. It gets harder sometimes. We run into these calling station type hands. That's what I thought. Yeah, definitely a weak player. Weak bets definitely allows you to make easier reads. The other good thing about these tournaments is you see a lot of the same players. It allows you to take good notes on them. Makes it easier the more that you play. These become really good for bankroll management, especially if you're an MTT player. By playing these, you can accumulate a lot of the losses that you have in your MTTs to help control your bankroll. Definitely not a tournament that you want to play to make a living at, just because of the amount and the amount of buy-ins that people have are just not high enough to make it a living. But they're great for variance and allow you to maintain your bankroll. The other thing you can see too here, by controlling our betting and controlling the amount of pots that we're in and not getting tangled up in these big hands, you see we are still in contingencies with all these guys right here. You allow these weaker players to make the mistakes. You allow them to put themselves out of the tournament, cripple themselves and not pay attention to pot control and chip stack, and you'll find that you'll win a lot of tournaments by just simply playing ABC poker. Guy using blocking bets and still ends up just taking it down. Again, we know this style play here is a calling station type play. Our raise really doesn't matter. You don't want to gamble with marginal hands by shoving into somebody that's liable to just call. The best thing to do is to check, make your hand before you waste any of your chips, and not try to bluff somebody that's probably sitting there watching TV, drinking a couple beers, and not really paying attention anyways. He looks down, he sees an ace. Doesn't matter what's on the board at that point. Okay, now we've reached the stage of the tournament where it's going to start getting real pushy. Hand selection is not going to be as important versus player selection. Alright, looking at these two players, we can expect to be able to trap with this guy here, who's going to be entering in a lot of pots, and the trick is going to be able to shove here and here when this guy is not in the pot, and we don't have to worry about his call. Knowing your opponents and playing disciplined poker is the key to winning a lot of these dons. Not getting wrapped up, not being in a hurry is the key. And it does change from 6 max to full ring as well. You do not want to be loose in these type tournaments, but when you're playing full ring, you're going to be much tighter than you are in the start than you are in 6 max. Hands like ace queen from under the gun, you would not even play. And you can see this guy is just playing everything, and if you can get it in against him with the best hand, you potentially could very well double up. And you just have to remember when you take that bad beat that you know, it is going to happen. It's poker for sure, and here's another big tell as well. There was no raise pre-flop. Maybe he has a 6, maybe something like ace 6, but to bet out in a king 6 board, 90% of the time in this situation they don't even have a king. It makes a great opportunity to play back if you have a big enough chip stack to induce a fold. Here he would probably still call with the remaining chips. but it's something to keep in mind if you do have more chips to contend with. As you can see, the tournament has begun to change. It's become more shovey at this point. The blinds have gotten bigger. And when you get stacked like this, you just end up having to wait for a hand and put it in the middle. Let the poker gods settle the rest. Pretty much at this area, any ace is going to work for a shoving range. Ouch. Well, that's pretty much the way it goes. But as you can see, that's pretty standard Don play. Maybe a few areas with marginal hands. You see, I really didn't get too much to play with as the blinds got bigger, but nothing's going to change at this style. This guy reached the 3K mark. He has well over 30% of the chips on the table. This is definitely a good enough chip count with what he has to put him in the money, and the fight now becomes between these two players here. Alright, and other than that, it's basic standard poker, and exercise good shove fold chart awareness, and with any luck you'll be knocking down the Dons and building your bankroll just like I did. Thanks, and I hope this helps clear up some of the different styles for Don play.
I'm bringing the heat, man. I'm on my grind, like all the time, trying to stop my shine.